My asset pack is going on sale for BCon 22 on Blender Market, and I'm also doing a free update. Links in the description below. Today we're going to be looking at how to create this fully procedural stone material. Stay tuned to the end of the video and I'll show you how you can go about sculpting and creating your own stylized rock really simply as well. So first up, let's get started in the shader editor here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click new material. Let's call this stylized rock. Now let's begin adding those kind of edge highlights you saw. So we're actually going to use the ambient inclusion node for that. So let's go ahead, add an ambient inclusion here. And then we will plug this into our color here so that we can see what we are working on. And what we can do is we can go ahead and make this distance something really small. So let's make this 0.1. And what that'll do is bring it in there a bit. And we're going to go ahead, click inside here. And then we're going to grab a color ramp, put this here. And then we're going to go ahead, put this back over here, and then bring that in. And you can see how that kind of inverses that. Now, we want this to kind of have more of a faded off look. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, duplicate those nodes just like that. We'll grab a mix RGB node. We'll grab one there. And then what we can do is go ahead and screen this. And what that will do is add these over top of one another. And we can take this distance up here and let's maybe do twice the distance. And you can see how that's kind of starting to lower us out there a bit, but we don't want that to be quite as strong. So we'll go ahead, grab this white here. We'll take this and just drag that down a bit. And that gives us a bit of a fade. Now in the final product, I did this 4 or 5 times, but for the sake of this tutorial, let's move forward to the next step. Now for this next step, what we want to do is actually kind of utilize this ambient inclusion to create our color. So we'll go ahead, grab another mix RGB. We'll go ahead, put that here. And what we're going to do is move this up to the factor socket. And then we can choose 2 colors here. So we can go ahead, grab 2 so we can just see what we're doing there. And you can see how that is driving the colors of these. So what we can do for this top one here, that'll be our edge highlight. So first let's grab our stone color. Let's go ahead and maybe grab kind of like a bluish, desaturated kind of gray there. Perfect. And then what we'll do is put Control C over that, hit Control V here. That'll give us the same color there. Then we can kind of raise the lightness on here. Maybe shift the hue a tiny bit, and that'll give us that kind of worn out look. Perfect. Let's look at how we can go ahead and add some detail to these rocks. So we're going to go ahead, grab these, move these over here, hit Control J, put them in their own little box just to make those easier to follow. We'll go ahead and get rid of this for now so that we can work on our texture. Now, a lot of times when you see stylized rocks, they kind of have those little circle specks and divots through them. So let's create those next. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to add a Veroni texture. Great. Let's zoom in on that so we can see what we're doing. We're going to change this to smooth. I'm going to Control click this with Node Wrangler so I can see what I am doing there. And then what we're going to do is change this scale down here till we get something a bit smaller. Great. That looks like a good size. Now we can add a color ramp on top of this. And then what we can do is go ahead and crunch these way down. And what that's going to do is give us just kind of these little divots all over. And you can play that scale until you get something that you're happy with. Perfect. I'm happy with that right there. Great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix this to get some smaller ones as well. So we'll go ahead, duplicate these. We'll hit a shift and we will look for a mix RGB there. Go ahead, drag this into here. We'll grab multiply and turn that factor up. And then what we can do is change the scale here. Let's do maybe 50. You can see that we start to get kind of all these little dots all over as well. Perfect. Now what we'll do is we want to add a little bit of extra noise to these just to make them feel a bit more kind of realistic. So what we'll do is go ahead here, add a mix RGB, mix that there as well. We will add a noise texture up here. And if we actually take this little node here and we search for color, you'll see that our top one right here is the color ramp with a factor. That'll just allow us to do that a bit quicker. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead, grab this color here, plug that down into there, and then we can go ahead and screen this here. And then we can crunch these values quite a bit. And you can see there with my node preview what that's doing. And then we're going to turn this way up. So let's turn this up to like 50. Next up, let's look at how we can kind of create that layered rock look. So we'll go ahead, turn our material back on there. And we're actually going to do this quite simply with a wave texture. So we'll go ahead, search for a wave texture there. We'll add that down here. I'm just going to zoom in down here so we can see what we're doing. We'll leave it on bands. We'll change it to a diagonal for this, and we'll go ahead, Control Shift click so we can see what we're doing. And then what we'll do is we'll turn the scale down to 1 so that we get these kind of really big bands. And you can really play that scale until you're something you're happy with, but we're going to turn the distortion up to something around like maybe 7.5. Perfect. You can see that now those bands are moving about. Let's lower this detail to about 0.5. Great. Set our detail scale to 1.5. And we can just play the scale until we get something we're kind of happy with in terms of layers. Perfect. I think that's about as many as I would want. Now what we can do is grab this color here, pull this into a color ramp. Perfect. We'll Control-Shift-Click so we can see what we're doing there. And then we can use this to kind of control the strength of our waves there. But one last step, we'll come over here to Sign, change this to Sol. And you'll see how that'll kind of give us that sharp edge and push that out. So we'll take our color ramp here. We'll just maybe click plus there. We're just going to pull this out a bit. So it's just going to kind of pull out that darkened edge there. Perfect. And with that, we have all the assets we need to kind of piece this together into our final texture. So what we can do is we can go ahead, grab a mix RGB node, and we're going to mix our details first. So let's go ahead, mix these two colors right here, and we'll go ahead, turn that factor way up, and we're going to do a multiply, and you can kind of see how those are starting to combine, and you can turn that up or down if you want. I'm going to leave mine maybe around 0.8. Perfect. Now we can use this to drive the roughness and the bump map. So we'll go ahead, we'll just plug this directly into the roughness there. Let's add a displacement node. This way you can use displacement as well if you want and not just bump. And we'll drag that into the height, drag that into displacement, and then we'll go ahead and leave our scale at 1 for now. Now let's go ahead, drag our material back in here and get off that node preview so that we can kind of see what we're doing. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add this into our color. So we'll go ahead, drag this out here, type mix, and you'll see that we'll get this kind of mix right here. We'll drag this into the color 1. We'll drag this into the bottom color. We'll turn this up. Let's plug that into our color over here. And if I go ahead and put this on the multiply here, you can see that it's starting to add that color back in, which is a bit strong. So let's go ahead, turn that down. I like mine a bit more subtle, around 0.4, but you can change that wherever you want. You'll notice here that we're getting kind of a lot of reflection there in our stone, which is not what we want. So we can go ahead, search for a color ramp there, plug that over the top of the middle here. And then we can go ahead and raise this black up until we get a roughness that we are happy with. Perfect. Now as one last step, I like to turn down the scale a bit. I don't like it quite that strong, maybe something a little more subtle, but like 0.015. Perfect. That gives us a bit more of kind of a subtle texture there. And then we can go ahead and add an ambient occlusion node on top of everything. And what that will do is add a bit of darkness there into the rocks. Great. If you're interested in downloading this material from my Patreon, go ahead and check that out. Link in the descriptions below. But let's take a look at how you can create your own stylized rocks. Today I'm going to show you how to create stylized rocks in Blender. And for this, we're actually going to use the default start. Your time to shine, little buddy. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cut them up, but let's get started. If you come over here to your add-ons and you search for Carver, you can go ahead and enable that. Head over into edit mode and grab your object here. And then you can hit Control-Shift-X and you'll see this tool pop up on the bottom. Now you'll see right now we have the cut type of rectangle, but if we go ahead and hit space, you'll see we get line. So I'll go ahead, click here, hit spacebar. After that, just rotate around and keep cutting off chunks. Focus on large corners and cutting out chunks of those corners to create flat planes. Switch over to sculpt mode, use the remesh menu here, add as much detail as you can without lagging your computer, and then come over here and grab the scrape brush. And now what we're going to do is we're going to scrape away all the edges, and then wherever their corner is, go ahead and scrape away there as well. Check out my channel to see how to learn this procedural rock material as well. The pack is now on sale to celebrate this new update and will continue through the Blender Market sale for 25% off. So if you'd like to learn more, check it out in the description below.